Hi everybody, and welcome to the first in our series of transitions planning in extraordinary times for parents and carers. My name's Tracy Francis and I work for ARC Scotland, and we manage the Scottish Transitions Forum. And we wanted to put together this series because we know it's no secret that to make a smooth transition to adulthood, then the really important thing is for families to have access to the information that they need and to have good information. So we wanted to make sure that we could bring parents and carers into direct contact with some of the leading organisations in Scotland who can give them the information, answer questions, and help you decide what's best for your young person. So I think especially at this time when everything is so uncertain around your school leaving times, what's going to be happening, what the next steps are, how the normal things would work, it's really important more than ever to actually have access to that information. So I'm hoping that this series will be something that will be really useful for you as you're doing your planning and your organising. So today's topic is post-school learning options and support. And I'm joined by three people who are going to be able to talk you through some of the things you need to be thinking about in preparing for your young person's next stage as they move forward. Now, we have had a few camera issues, unfortunately, I have to say. So if the signal's coming and going a bit, then I do apologise for that. We'll do what we can with that, but as you'll understand, this sort of thing is kind of new to all of us, so hopefully we'll be able to manage to get you in contact with the people who would need to speak to you. I'm going to ask each of the three to introduce themselves briefly first, and then I'll say a wee bit about how the afternoon session is going to run. So Rebecca Scarlett from Leeds, Scotland, would you be able to go first and just introduce yourself a wee bit?
Yep, sure. So hello everyone, very warm welcome. My name's Rebecca and I work at Leeds, Scotland, and I'll cover a little bit about what we do when I'm talking, but I am the Senior Policy and Information Officer at Leeds.
Thanks, Rebecca. And Anita Baggs from Edinburgh College. Anita, would you be able to introduce yourself briefly?
Hello, I'm Anita Baggs, the Curriculum Leader for Access and Continuing Education at Mid and Milton Road Campus. We look after anybody that needs a bit extra support, from special schools to hubs, etc., and we make sure that they're getting the support they require.
Lovely, thanks Anita. And last but not least, Lindsay Chisholm. Lindsay, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Lindsay Chisholm. I'm the new manager for Access and Continuing Education at Edinburgh College, and Anita and I work very closely together. And we're really happy to be here today representing Edinburgh College and happy to answer any questions you may have around transit.
That's lovely. Thanks, Lindsay. Okay, then I'm just going to say a wee bit about how we're going to and then I'll hand over to Rebecca, and Rebecca will kick us off. If you have a look on your screen, I don't know if you've used GoToWebinar before, but somewhere on the screen you should be able to see something that will allow you to ask questions. It will either be a question mark or it might be the word question. And if you click on that, you should be able to see a space where you can type in your question. You can, as we go through the presentations, you'll be able to see, or you should be able to see the panelist who's speaking, I hope. And you'll be able to put in questions at any time. What I will do, I'll be monitoring the questions and I'll make sure that they're asked of the appropriate person when we get an opportunity to do that. It might be at the end of the presentation or it might be partway through. We'll see how it goes. But any questions or any comments that you want to make as we go through, please type them into that section for questions. The other thing is to draw your attention to, we have got some handouts that you can download. Again, if you look somewhere on your screen, you should have either a wee icon or you should have a label that says handouts. If you look for that button, you'll have the slides from today that you can download, and you'll also have our transition planning guide for parents. And that's got lots of links to organisations that can give you advice and support. So do have a look at those. And I think that's probably all we need to do in terms of housekeeping. So if we're all sorted, let's have a look and see how we're doing. Nope, okay, that's fine. I think that maybe that was just trying out some of the icons on the screen. Okay, then what we're going to do is, Rebecca, I'm going to hand over to you to kick off. And just 1 second. You should be able to share your screen in a moment.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Thank you for your patience. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about LEAD first of all. So we can have the next slide, Tracy. So just briefly, hopefully most of you have heard of LEAD Scotland, but if not, this is a great opportunity to find out a little bit more about us. Our reason for being is to support disabled people to learn. So primarily what we do is we provide the learning service. So we do that for disabled people and carers throughout Scotland. I've listed the areas that we're in there, as you can see on the screen. And really we provide one-to-one learning at home or in the community. The bit about being at home is really important for a lot of disabled people who can't get out, potentially for physical or for mental health reasons. We deliver group work as well in the community, and we also have accredited courses that we deliver to help people build qualifications. It's very much flexible and at people's own pace. And we also have befriending services as well, because that's a really important aspect of trying to reduce social isolation. The bit of work that I'm involved in, though, is the Disabled Students Helpline. So I run our helpline, and it's open to parents, carers, students themselves, as well as practitioners. And we also provide free downloadable guides, and I'm going to show you a couple of them as we go through the slides, so you can see what we've got on offer and hopefully familiarise yourself with some of those resources that will be helpful later on. And also just lastly to say that the work that we do also is very much around trying to influence change. So we build up evidence from the helpline, we listen to parents, we listen to students to find out what are the trends, what's emerging, and how and where can we try and make a difference by working with public bodies and the sector. Okay, next slide, Tracy. So just briefly, what I'm going to cover today, we're going to look at some of the different options after school for learning. We'll touch on some of the funding and support, and then we'll also, I'll signpost you where to get some more information. So this is obviously just a brief introduction. So I'm going to touch on all these subjects, but I've linked lots of resources where you can find out more. And ultimately, you can also get in touch with me on the helpline with the details. The first resource that I just want to point out, which if you're not familiar with, a really good idea to check out, is Skills Development Scotland have something called My World of Work. And it's got a lot of different facilities on it, and it's all about supporting people to develop skills for work. And they have a course search engine. So if your young person really wants to do something, for example, they want to study makeup and learn how to be a makeup artist, but you're not really sure where they're doing courses, you can use this search engine to go and put your location in, how far the young person's willing to travel, and then bring up the different courses that are available. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to focus on is what some of the alternatives are to the senior phase of school. The reason that I've included this slide is because we've seen a trend emerging on the helpline of parents getting in touch to say that their young people are struggling to maintain their place at school. Normally the reasons that are being cited is due to either autism or mental health issues. And often parents are coming to me and saying, my child is really capable, they're really academic, but they're maybe experiencing a lot of anxiety, or maybe they're going through a lot of bullying, and it's getting really difficult for them to sustain their place at school. So this is just some suggestions of some things that might be possible looking into if that's the situation for you. Schools can deliver a part-time school timetable for a young person who's got additional support needs on discussion, and if it meets their needs, really just need to start that conversation with the school and know that it's something that is possible. Teacher contact at home, that will be very much dependent on resources and availability, and I wouldn't like to say that that would be available for all students, but I do know that it can happen, and it has happened. So for young people who, for whatever reason, just cannot get to school, there may be an opportunity for teachers to come and have, an hour or 2 hours a week of contact time to support them. If your young person has left school altogether and they do want to go to uni, but they've not come out with the nationals or the hires that they need, then they can complete these at college. So not every single course will be available, but if you have a look at that My World of Work search engine tool, and they can do hires and nationals on a part-time basis, so they can pick and choose which subjects they're interested in, evenings and weekends. But distance learning as well is an option for some people, so you can do some, not all, but some of those qualifications are available learning from home, which is something that we'll all be getting very used to by now. Enter High is something that I learned about fairly recently from a parent who contacted the helpline who has a daughter with autism, and she said it's been an absolute lifeline for her. And for her daughter, it made such a difference because school had not been appropriate for her. And they basically deliver a virtual classroom experience. So I guess it'll be similar to some of the things that maybe some of your young people have been doing throughout the lockdown. It basically mimics a classroom. You're in a classroom situation and they can teach the full curriculum, but it is GCSEs and A-levels that they would be learning. So, you know, it would depend on whether or not that would be suitable, but we've had some positive feedback from some parents. There are access courses as well. So again, if someone wants to go to uni and they've come out without any qualifications or not enough qualifications, there are routes into university or into higher education that you can do via college. Just supported a parent recently to help her son who's been out of education for a number of years now to access what's known as a swap course. So I've hyperlinked that in there. You'll see everything with the blue and underline, and if you click on that, it'll take you to more information. And they're really just routes to help people who've maybe been out of education who want to get back in. The other thing to do, and I say this with a caveat that you know each situation is different, with ILF Transition Fund, which hopefully you'll be attending the session on that and you can learn more about it. You may be able to look into seeing whether they can fund private tuition. So if your young person was not attending school but they wanted to do their exams, you could maybe get some private tutoring and then just register to sit the exams at school or at college. Okay, next slide, Tracy. So I'm not going to talk very much about college because we have our esteemed colleagues with us today from Edinburgh College who'll be able to go into this a lot more detail. So I'm just very briefly going to talk about some of the options that are available for learning at college. Transition in schools links courses, and I'm sure that Anita and Lindsay will cover that, but something really worth knowing about if you don't already. So it's really about helping young people with that transition and giving them an opportunity, a taster to see what college life is like and how they'll get on there. I've put in a link there for Glasgow have a specific prospectus for senior phase, so S4 to S6, and it's called the Glasgow Senior Phase Prospectus. And it's full of different options for learning in those final years of school and having day release to go into college. Supported learning courses, which is, again, Anita and Lindsay will talk about. They're for young people with learning disabilities or additional support needs who will require some support in the classroom. We've obviously talked about Highers and Nationals. HNDs and HNCs are obviously available at college, and they can be a route into a degree, or they can be a certificate in their own, a qualification in their own right. Access courses. Some colleges have partnership agreements with universities, so it could be that your young person may want to do a degree at some point, but the university environment may not be right for them, or they can't get to the university specifically. Some colleges have agreements or arrangements where they complete the degree at the college, but it's accredited by the university. And then, of course, short and leisure courses and a lot more, there's a lot of professional development. So there's a lot of options for learning at college. Some resources I put in there for you is the two of the guides that we've produced, Supporting You at College, which is all about the different types of support that you can get and how to arrange it and who's responsible for it, and also our Post-School Learning Choices in Scotland guide. And that really tries to lay out what's available nationally up to further education level in terms of learning for young people. Okay, next slide. So university, we'll just briefly talk about some of the things that might be useful for you to know about. People can obviously do university part-time, full-time, or on a distance learning basis. The Open University is probably the most well-known provider of distance learning. So distance learning is self-directed learning where you're learning from home. But bear in mind that other universities do offer distance learning courses as well. So again, you could use that My World of Work course search tool to look for that. And also to say that the OU don't just do degrees, they also do access courses onto degrees and diplomas as well. One really important thing to know about if your young person is disabled and they're going to university is the Disabled Students Allowance. So that's a specific fund that you can apply for to get assistive technology, specialist equipment, special furniture, and also different types of support workers, educational support workers. So there's a real emphasis on that. It's not about social care support. There could be a scribe or a signer if people need mentoring or perhaps some study skills support. DSA can take a bit of a time to apply for and go through the process, so I would recommend that as soon as your young person knows if they are going into higher education, so just to say that you can get disabled students allowance for an HNC and an HND as well. As soon as you know, start the application process. It can take a while. Every university has a disability service. They've got different names in colleges, but in universities they're generally called disability service, and you will potentially interact with a disability advisor. There's also a really big emphasis on mental health in universities at the moment. So generally there's a counsellor available or multiple counsellors available, wellbeing support, wellbeing workshops and groups as well. If people do require personal care or support, so support that they would need regardless of whether they were at university or not, that's something that you need to request with the social services department or the local social work department. And there's more information about how to go about that on some of the resources that we're sharing. But essentially, again, the emphasis on try and get an assessment as early as possible because these things can take time. So some resources there I've linked is their fact sheet for DSA, the support you can get at university, and also higher education in Scotland lays out different qualifications and where they sit on the qualifications framework. Okay, next slide. So, talked about college and university, and I want to talk now about a little bit about other learning options, because often we get asked, well, what else is there if people are not going to college and university, what else is available? So first of all, I always recommend that people have a look at something called the Youth Employment Activity Plan. So that's in the third bullet point down there. Every council area in Scotland has to have some kind of programme or plan of what is available for young people when they leave school, and it maps out all of the different training and employability and development options for young people. So if you click on that Employability in Scotland website, and then you'll get a wee map, and then you click on your area, it'll bring up a page and it should say key documents, and you'll be able to find hopefully in there. And the plan generally is split into different sections, so it could be around basically how far away they are from work is how it's organised, so that there's a whole lot of information in there to start having a look at. Activity agreements is something I really recommend people familiarise themselves with as well. So these are for young people who look like they're not moving into what's deemed a positive destination, and really that's, you know, any kind of place after school, whether it's volunteering, work, employment, learning, or if they look like they're at risk of not moving into a positive destination after school, then that's something that can come in. All the councils have overall responsibility for just delivering them. So if you click on the hyperlink, it'll take you to your local council's page, and then it will take you from there how to find out more information. But essentially, the young person would be matched with a key worker, so they'd work one-to-one, and it really should be at their pace and trying to set goals, build up confidence, taste different activities, and hopefully progress on to further learning. The Adult Achievement Award is something to check out as well. Both that and the activity agreements are learning options that Lead delivers in some of our services. So it helps people who don't have any qualifications and are not really at a point where they can really access a formal course. Lead Scotland or other organisations will support you to develop a qualification by reflecting on the learning that you might be doing in your everyday life, and that could be from activities, volunteering, caring duties. So it's a great opportunity to get a qualification, and we've supported learners who then went on to college after doing that. So just as we've been talking about, you can learn with Lead as well. If you're in one of our areas, then you or your young person can be matched with either a volunteer or a learning coordinator and have a couple of hours a week. Where again, it's about a personal learning support plan. We can loan people devices to help them to learn how to use accessibility features, travel training, different courses. So there's lots of things available. It'll depend on what area you're in. Okay, next slide, Tracy. So just a little note about distance learning. So we talked about that earlier in terms of doing that at the Open University. There are lots of distance learning courses available that are not accredited or that are not with degrees, and you may have come across some in this current climate that we're in. One that I would recommend having a look at is Open Learn. And that's run by the Open University. So it's a platform, it's a free platform of loads and loads of short courses that people can do. And it's a great way to get back into learning, or to try something out, or to develop some knowledge, just to develop a bit of a passion for learning. One thing that we find though that with distance learning is it's very hard to get motivated, and it can be difficult to have the structure. So just to highlight that Open Learn and the Open University have tried to train up different organisations and become Open Learn champions. So again, Lead and other organisations could work with a young person to do an Open Learn course, but support them with keeping on track and with structuring. And then community learning. So community learning and adult learning could vary. It could be delivered by a charity, it could be a council, or it could be a private company. It's really about learning that's in the community. Generally, the focus with community learning is on literacy, so maths and English, and ESOL as well, English as a second language, as well as digital skills. Digital skills is becoming a kind of real core competency to have now. I've put a couple of links in there as well for the WEA website. They are all a charity that are basically all about promoting adult learning, so you can search for courses in there. If you could just Google CLD and the name of your council, then it should bring up the adult learning programme or the programmes that are available. And actually sometimes universities deliver community classes as well. So again, they may have a qualification attached, they may not, but they're not degree courses, but they might be running some courses as well. Okay, next slide, Tracy. I'm just going to touch on employability, because there's going to be another whole section about employability where you'll get much more information about this. So just briefly, if you're thinking that actually perhaps your young person maybe wants to try out the world of work rather than have more learning, but maybe isn't ready for work, then looking at employment programs is the way to go. And it's all about getting support to develop skills, to explore options, to write CVs, to practice interviews. But also one key thing which can be really important is some supported employment programs will work with the employer to support them to understand what their duties are, but how they can support a disabled person in the workplace. Apprenticeships obviously is all about learning and training, but in a paid position, and there's a real push on trying to encourage applicants that are disabled into doing apprenticeships as well, to make sure that it's an accessible option. So you'll learn all about that when you do the employability, if you do the employability session. Social firms, just briefly, they're social enterprises, but basically a social enterprise is they're a business, so they do sell products or services for a profit, but they use all those profits to put back into recruiting and training and supporting people to get a job and keep a job. And there's a specific focus on disabled people, so it's all about trying to give them real opportunities for work. Project Search, just a wee nod to that. I don't know if Edinburgh College do Project Search, but they can maybe say when they're talking about it. This is a really successful and popular programme, specifically for people with autism and learning disabilities, that's come from America, where a person would be kind of submerged into your work placement, where you would learn and train on the job and have a job coach. And there's been a lot of success of people moving on into work after that. So lots of resources and links underneath there for you to check out the different aspects of employability at your own in your own time. Okay, next slide, Tracy. So just to finish up, just with some COVID-19 updates, I'm sure that you're probably sick to the back teeth of hearing anything COVID related. There's not a whole lot that I can say in terms of transition planning right now and what to do and what to know. Basically, it's a constantly changing situation, and the best thing to do is to check the social media pages of anywhere that you want to know, well, what are they doing, what's their approach, what's the latest, because social media is generally where the most up-to-date news goes. So that would be the first place I would signpost you to. If your young person is thinking about or is due to go to college or uni this academic year, and they're going to be studying higher education, definitely still apply for DSE now, and the assessments are happening remotely. So they're needs assessments, they're not an assessment to diagnose or anything, it's more about what support they might need when they come to do their course. As far as we know, college and universities is likely to be a blended model when we return. And again, our colleague from Edinburgh College can maybe say more about that, but it's probably going to be a combination of continuing to do remote learning as well as being classroom based. But as we know, things change on a daily basis. So I'm sure you all know by now, so the awards that are going to be given will be based on estimate grades. And if you've got any questions about that or concerns, have a look at SQA's website for their updates to understand what processes there are if you want to try and challenge a decision that's happened, but feel free to call LEAD as well. SAS have got updates about funding, student loans, and how all of that is affected. Essentially, everyone's trying to just run as business as usual. And then we've got an update COVID-19 fact sheet as well about funding and qualifications and how that's all working. Okay, last slide, Tracy. So really just where to get more information. So I've hyperlinked everything, so if you click on the links, I think that there may be our leaflet in the resources as well. But just call me or you can email during the helpline hours. All of our free online guides are there that we talked about earlier, so support at college, support at university. We've also got a guide on your rights, disabled people's rights in education under the Equality Act, and that's quite a good one to know about. Also talking about tomorrow, a little plug for that. Tracy worked on this when she worked with Contact, and I supported her, and along with parents, produced this fantastic resource. So if you've not been on to Talking About Tomorrow yet, I really recommend that you do have a look. There's so much information, and it's really well organised. There's also a lot of resources, templates for transition plans, videos from other parents, information about guardianship, about benefits. There's a lot in there. The other thing to say really is speak to the college or the university if that is an option that you're thinking about. Look at prospectuses, attend open days, and arrange discussions and meetings as early as possible, because quite often we hear that it doesn't happen until the young person starts their course, and things are a little bit on the back foot by that point. And the other thing is, if you want to get further career information, advice and guidance, then Skills Development Scotland are the people to call. They've got centres all over Scotland and you can arrange an appointment, but they will all have access, young people should have access to that service, if you like, in their senior phases. So, okay, that's me finished. Apologies about the slow start there, but I hope that's been useful.
Okay, Rebecca, that's great. Thank you very much. I would say to everybody, if you want any more, if you want to make any comments on anything Rebecca said, or if you want to ask any questions about what she's been talking about, do use that question facility and send your questions through, and we'll try and get through as many of them as we possibly can. Rebecca, there's one that I would just like to pass on to you at this point, if that's okay. And it's something that you didn't mention, but it's a question that's been asked by Lynn, and it's to do with transport. I know this can be a tricky one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
When you have a young person who's got a college course lined up or has got the next steps in place, and they've been getting transport in school to help them get there and so on, is there any help that people can have around transportation to and from college?
It's a bit of a contentious subject, this one. So there's a variety of different options, but the first thing to do, if it's about getting support to get transport to get to and from college, then the first place to go to is the social work department. So you need to, again, that will come under that social care assessment that you would have. So they'll look at what their needs are and whether or not they would need to have support for transport to get to college. If it's more about funding and money for college, there are bursary funds that colleges can access to support with funding. So it could be for taxi travel, for example, that could be a possibility. Edinburgh College could maybe say a little bit more about that. So combination of those two things. Sometimes it is difficult though to get that transport funded, and it really will depend on the social work department and what their assessment says, but also what their eligibility criteria is in terms of getting funding. So I won't say too much more about that now, but you can always get in touch with me if you want to discuss that.
That's great, thanks Rebecca. And I know another part of that question was that Lynn's young person had started travel training, but that was cut short in March. And just for anybody else who is in the same situation as that, we have got a session later in this series with the Independent Living Fund, the Transition Fund. And one of the things that you can apply for through the Transitions Fund is for money to help somebody to work with your young person on travel training and independent travel and building up that capacity. So certainly you'll find links to that in some of the resources that are in the handout there. And we are doing a session which the Independent Living Fund Scotland will lead about how to apply to the Transitions Fund and what you can use that money for later in the series. So thanks very much, Rebecca. That's great. As I said, if anything occurs to you, you've got any comments or any questions, I know there's a couple that are coming through already. I'm going to be making a note of those as we go through, and we'll come back and we'll try and make sure that those are all covered by the end. So I'm going to now try and bring in the people from Edinburgh College. Lindsay and Anita, are you still there and are you able to speak to us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi,
Anita,
Lindsay.
are you there?
I know Anita was having problems. I know she was. So, Lindsay, I'm wondering if it might just be you. If I put the slides up on the screen, would you be able to talk through those?
Well, I'll give it a try. And I'm just new into this post to let everyone on the call know I've only joined this week, so this could be fun. But we'll see if we can. We'll give it a go. Anita, are you able to get in?
No, it doesn't sound like it, I'm afraid. I'm really sorry. I do apologise to everybody for the the technical issues that we're having today. As you'll probably be aware, especially if you've been to any other sessions like this, sometimes it's the signal that's the difficulty, and I think there's not a lot that we can do about that. So we'll just get through as best we can. And Anita, Lindsay, I'm going to hand over to you. If you want to ask me, like Rebecca did, when to start moving through the slides, I'm happy to do that. Okay.
Lovely, that's fine. So thank you very much for allowing us to come along and speak today, and I'll give you as much information as I can. As I've said, I'm just really new into this role, so there may be things that I'm not aware of and things that I may need to come back to you on, but as Tracy's already said, any questions you have, just let us know and I can go away and find out anything that we're not able to cover today. So we, Anita and I, work for the Access and Continuing Education Department in Edinburgh College, and yeah, I'm going to give you some information on that today. So can we have the next slide, please? So we have courses that run at all levels at Edinburgh College, and our courses at level 1 and 2 are for people who have more complex support needs. Our classes are smaller. We have people who have specific training, and really we pride ourselves on the college. Actually, our ACE department, Access and Continuing Education, is a fantastic department, and we give a lot of support to people with a variety of needs. So people who've maybe attended a special school, we have different courses that they can come into. So we have Introduction to College, which is one of our part-time courses. We have Entry to Supported Learning, Prep for Supported Employment, and Entry to Learning Level 2. So all of these are on the website, and I would encourage you, if you haven't applied already, to places have been filling up. So again, you can go on and have a look if you haven't already. We still have places available in some of our courses, and you can go in and apply online. On our website, there's also a fantastic descriptor that shows what's involved in the course, what the expectations are, to give you a bit more information as well when you're making those choices. Okay, next slide. So one of the things that we're really passionate about, I suppose, is making sure that we get it right. When someone comes to college, it can be such a different experience from school that we really want to make sure that when somebody comes in, that we try and get all our ducks in a row and make sure it's a positive experience for a young person, or for someone who's coming to college for the first time. Oh, thank you. So we do a variety of things to help transition people in. We have a series of taster sessions. So again, we have our ACE department, but we also have the ability to pull from other areas to give people a bit of experience. If someone for example, had an interest in construction but weren't ready to go into a full-time construction course, there is an option where we can expose people to that through short periods, and we do that on some of our courses. We try and timetable our courses, so we have level 1 and 2 sort of timetable for mornings and 3 and 4 in the afternoons, and we try and sort of familiarise our students with the campus layout, the facilities, the route to college, the staff, and just really the atmosphere of the college. You know, we really want our students to feel part of the college and to get used to the environment. It can be quite busy in college, so we like to try and help with that transition. And we try where we can to get courses closest to the home address. The reality is that's not always possible, because sometimes places will be filled already, or the course that someone might pick might not run at another campus. But generally, where we can, we try and get the campus that's closest to home. And this is something that we work on. So we have a transition officer who is going into schools, and his role is to help with that transition from school into college, and looking at things like this, trying to get you into the right course and trying to get you into a campus where we can that's close to your home. Okay, next slide, please. So our full-time courses then at levels 1 and 2, we have Steps Towards Independence programme, level 1 to 2, Enter Learning, Prep for Supported Employment, and these courses have a mix. So we offer a variety of different units on all of these courses. Again, you'll see those if you go into the website. So we have core skills, and core skills are at the heart of what we do. So numeracy, digital skills, or ICT computing and communications. But we also are developing life skills, so helping to travel in the community, relationships, volunteering, all of those kind of soft skills we're developing as well. And that is delivered in a holistic way throughout the year. So we do things maybe like variety of projects and things like that, that build on all of these skills. And again, this is done in a small class with very supportive and nurturing lecturers and educational support workers, etc. Okay, next slide, please. So our Steps to Independence programme then is a new programme from our Milton Road campus down by Portobello, and it's aimed at people who've attended special education or have received significant levels of support, and people who use day services. And this will run over 5 days. And at this point, I suppose what I have to say in brackets is we're hoping that when we come back in September that we'll be running our full programme as it is timetabled, but the reality is we don't know with COVID-19 how that's going to look. So that might change slightly, but our aim is that we hope that we'll be running pretty much a full programme when we come back in September. And this is a flexible programme, so people can attend part-time or full-time. There's options they can pick from. And again, you know, if people need personal assistance or one-to-one support, they can bring support staff with them. So it's a really great programme that's, as we say, just new to Milton Road this year. Okay, next slide, please. So again, the subjects at this course for levels 1 and 2, Steps to Independence. We can do music, we've got core skills, again, digital skills, nature and the environment. We love where we can and where it's safe to do outdoor learning, health and well-being, independent living skills, art, design, drama, volunteering. So there really is a lot that we can do, a lot of different units that can be studied on this particular programme. Okay, next slide, please. So full-time courses at level 2, we have Entry to Learning level 2 and Prep for Supported Employment. And these are designed for young people who are transitioning into adult life. Again, students will probably be leaving a special school or a mainstream placement with a high level of support. And again, at the heart of that course, communication, numeracy and ICT, but we do a lot about nurturing self-confidence, team working, building self-esteem. And again, really trying to work on increasing independent working, and also helping with the social, personal and life skills. You know, coming to college is such a rich experience for young people, and we like them to be involved in all parts of that. So, okay, next slide, please. So again, you can see here there's typically a mix of core skills units or life skills units. Money Matters, for example, is a great unit that we have where we're teaching, you know, around specifically around money. So rather than it being about numeracy, we teach about money. And we also have our practical skills. So again, we have our own kitchen that we can use in some of our campuses. We can get into a variety of different vocational areas, so cookery skills, rural skills, we do the John Muir Award, art. So again, there's a lot of things that people can pick from on this course. Okay, next slide, please. So on our level 2 courses at college, we have someone called a learning development tutor, and that is a purely pastoral role. This is someone who works for our student experience team, and they will deliver the induction and provides that ongoing pastoral care and guidance, and that's their point of contact through the year. And what we find is students build up a great relationship with their learning development tutor. We often use the term LDT for short, but that is the person who, if they have any kind of pastoral problems, need any guidance, they can speak to their LDT. We also have study coach sessions. So this is run by an academic member of staff, and it can be when people are struggling, perhaps particularly in one unit, or they need a bit of help with a unit. Again, it's just another person that they have a regular weekly slot with that we can highlight if there are any issues or anything needs to be addressed. And it really all is about that smooth transition. We want to try and make it as fun and as seamless as we can from school to college and then beyond, and really helping plan those next steps, because college is all about preparing people for life and giving those life skills and helping to gain the skills and qualifications to either move on to another college course, which is absolutely right, or to go into work. And we love when that happens, when people leave us and go into work, then our job is most definitely done, which is fantastic. Okay, next slide, please. So a little slide here just showing some of the ways that people come into our courses. So all of our courses last for a full academic year. So our academic year this year is starting the week commencing the 7th of September, and it runs through until the end of May, sort of first 2 weeks in June. That's a full academic year, obviously without holidays involved in that. So people can move on from our intro course, which is a short course, either into Entry to Supported Learning 1 or Level 2. And again, as part of our interview process, we would decide where we thought it was best for a person, student or a young person to come in. And then we have our Entry to Learning Level 3, which is a vocational route. Okay, next slide, please.
I think that's your lot. That's all I've got, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's us. There you go. See, I thought I had more. I thought you wanted me to speak even more. I hope that was okay. And I am absolutely happy, as is Annie, to answer any questions that you may have. There may be questions that weren't covered, and we're absolutely happy to answer any questions.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. What I was going to ask you, if it's okay, Lindsay, and not wanting to put you on the spot, but that was great. For parents who are not from Edinburgh, and I know we've got quite a few people here today who aren't from Edinburgh, how typical is that of what they would expect to find locally in their own local college?
I think probably it would be much of the same at most colleges. Most colleges have, and again, the terminology will be different, but most colleges will have a specified department that really offers that transition. So it's very similar. And yeah, again, you maybe need to find out what that department is called, but it should be on the website prospectuses. But most colleges are in the same boat as us.
Okay, Rebecca, can I bring you back in here? And
Yes.
Anita, if you are able to join us, that would be great. I know that we can't actually see you, Lindsay, but obviously you can hear us. So I'm going to start going through some of the questions that we've had, and it's still okay if anybody wants to send any more questions through. But I'm going to ask the questions, and I'm quite happy for either or both of you, to tackle some of the ones that are coming through. So one of the things that people were asking was around, I I guess, how to contact colleges, because at the moment, with COVID and so on, there are people around who will have left school, who maybe haven't had the transition planning they would normally have expected to have, and things have not been as clear as they might otherwise have been about, you know, college courses and how to apply and getting those places confirmed. If you're a parent with a young person in that situation, who's the best person for you to go to start trying to move things forward? Would you contact
Yeah, for Edinburgh College, it would be either myself or Anita Baggs. So again, you can see my name up there, and I'm happy to share my email address. Normally, we would get back to you within sort of 24 hours. We do have people going on and off holiday over the next sort of 6 weeks. The academic staff have finished, but the support staff are still in. We're still in, so normally we would get back to you quite quickly. So if you do have any questions, or if you haven't had that transition planning, the transition planning for Edinburgh College should have mostly happened. If it hasn't, or you have any concerns, just email Anita or I, and we can look into that for you.
Okay, Rebecca, do you have any?
Yeah, just to say that, you know, again, it'll be much the same across the other colleges. So it's a case of getting on their website and having a think about who is it you want to talk to. Is it specific to the curriculum and the subject, or do you want to speak to perhaps student support services? And you'll find all of the email addresses on the different pages of the website. So if you just have a look around on a specific college, everybody's pretty much is working from home and has access to emails, and some people have access to phone calls as well. So again, it could be an idea to check the social media pages just to see if there's any updates about that.
Okay, and that would be the same pretty much for any college across Scotland. You would be able to pick up the phone as a parent and just have that conversation by asking for disability support or an advisor of some kind, yeah?
Yeah, a lot of the time emails are encouraged, so you might find that it's easier because people can be in and out of offices and kind of doing different work. So sometimes it can be a bit of a struggle to get through on the phone. So I would always suggest to start with an email and then to go from there and to chase it up by phone if you can.
Okay. In terms of choosing a course, we've had a question from Una, who said, how can young people or their carers ensure they have the best career advice ahead of leaving school? In particular, with young people who've got disabilities or health conditions of a particular kind, where can they go for really good, sound career advice and to point them in the right direction for courses that would be appropriate for them?
So that would be back to Skills Development Scotland, which I was talking about earlier. Every school in Scotland should have a person coming in from Skills Development Scotland and working with the young people who are in their senior phase. And they are, over the years, they've improved, I think, their grasp and their knowledge around supporting people with additional support needs. So they'll have staff who are specifically trained and have an understanding and have resources and be able to support the young person and the parent in terms of looking at what options there are. If you have left school though, like I said, just have a look back at my slides. If you click on that, there's career centres all over Scotland, and you know, in normal times you'd be able to just go in and make an appointment, but it might be a case of a telephone call or perhaps a virtual appointment where you can get that career information, advice and guidance.
That's great, thank you. Lindsay, would you like to add anything to that, or does that cover it, do you think?
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah, I think you've covered it. I'm so glad you're here, Rebecca. Talk about being thrown in the deep end.
No, I know that feeling. The other thing I would say is if there's a particular subject area like accessing continuing education, or if it's something more vocational specific, just try and phone the college. Normally I would say phone the switchboard, like the main line, and ask which department you're interested in, and if they can't, they'll try and put you through. Often, you know, they're not at their best, but you might get a name and an email address of who you can follow up with and see if you can set up a discussion about how will I know if this is the best thing. And the other thing is going along to those. I can't stress enough how important it is to go along to open days, because that's when you get really into the nitty-gritty of how things are, how things work, whether or not it might be suitable. So make sure you take advantage of those opportunities. You can maybe sign up. Different colleges have different processes, but they might have a like keep in touch, you're up to date, so sign up to find out when their open days are going to be.
Yeah, I would echo that, Rebecca.
Either of you, under current circumstances, are colleges and universities still doing open days this year, or are they doing them virtually, or are there any special arrangement around that?
We're past the
Edinburgh
point of
College have a
normally.
virtual one.
Yeah, so I mean, normally open days wouldn't be in this period anyway, because they would normally happen a lot earlier in the year, but I know that some had done virtual. So if there are continuing to be issues around COVID, then there will be virtual open days, but fingers crossed by the time we get to, weren't they normally in the autumn, would you say, Lindsay? In the late autumn?
Yes, we tend to have them a couple of times through the year, and
Yeah.
we've done a variety of different things. Sometimes it's at the weekend, sometimes it's been in an evening, but we always have representation from every department. So again, it's really great not just to speak to perhaps the ACE team around, moving into college, but also around, if the end goal is to get into hairdressing or to get into construction or health and social care, then we also will have staff from that area too, so we can start looking at the longer term planning. So it's a really, I can't underestimate enough or emphasize enough, sorry, how important it is to come along to those days, because you'll really be able to get all of the questions answered. So that's a really good point.
I think one thing that I would add there as well is that if you are a parent who's in the situation where your young person has left school and you don't really have a college place lined up, it's perfectly okay to take a little bit more time to think about it and make sure that you get the right course and talk to the right people. So one of the points about doing the series, this particular webinar series, is to give you some ideas if your young person is not ready to go straight into college, or if you feel that you haven't got the right kind of support in place, how you might fill that time while you get the information and while you get those connections and conversations to happen. Because I think it's so important to make sure that those conversations do take place before a young person is put into the college situation, because that's going to really influence how successful they manage to be in terms of accessing their course and feeling comfortable in that kind of setting. We've got a couple of questions that relate to support. There's academic support, obviously, in terms of accessing the course, and there's also the kind of social support, if you like. So I'm going to start with the one that's come from Karen, and she's saying, regarding college courses, how flexible can colleges be to organise, sort of module choices and things like that around a young person and around a young person's preferences? Basically, do you have to go with what it says on the tin, or can you customise it a wee bit?
It depends on the course is the answer, and for each course it would be different, but there are options on a lot of our courses to have some flexibility, but there is also the reality of the constraints of a timetable. So whereas it might be appropriate to have some people doing different levels within one classroom, it wouldn't necessarily be possible for someone, for half of the group to be doing art and half of them to be doing science. It might not be able to do that. We normally have a set timetable, but there is some flexibility. But again, I'm sorry, I'm not really answering the question, because it really does depend. So some of the courses we have, there is an option to be able to select to do perhaps a unit in either construction or cookery, for example, but not on all courses.
Okay. And thinking about more maybe the kind of social aspects of being in college, and you're doing something that's a little bit more independent when young people have been in school and when they've been used to having that kind of structure around them. And as we know, college and university doesn't necessarily have the same kind of structure that school would have. How do you ensure, what's the best way to ensure that someone gets the support that they need when they go into college? So things like getting from lecture to lecture, having lunch, sorting out homework and assignments and things like that. What's the best way to approach that?
As part of the transition, that's kind of what we would be looking at, having a look at what someone's needs were and going through that kind of thing. Would be something that we do as part of the transition. We would do our PLSP plan, and we also have the pastoral support I talked about earlier. So you've got the learning development tutor, you've also got the study coach. And again, what I would say is the college, and I would imagine all colleges are very similar in terms of their ACE department, are very nurturing and supportive. We're always looking out for the signs of is everyone settling in okay? Do we need to offer any additional support? So again, we would do that up front, and we have an open door policy, you know, so if at any point any parent, carer, or young person themselves felt this isn't right, I need some help, the door's always open. We're always looking for ways to keep people in college on the course rather than losing anybody. So we would always want to have a conversation, and we would really encourage, you know, never be frightened to come in, meet with us, phone us, email us. I'm always happy, as is Anita, to meet somebody for a coffee and kind of iron out if you feel like there are any problems, because we really want to get in that first year or so, getting people really comfortable and confident in college so they can go on and do the best that they can.
That's great. Rebecca, do you know if we've also had a question from Claire about who pays for support staff in college? If somebody does require one-to-one support or a personal assistant, do you have any? Are there any grants people can apply for, or funds that they should know about that would help with that?
So when it comes to one-to-one support to go to college, and that could be to keep safe while you're there, to get between classes, at lunch times, perhaps support with personal care and going to the toilet. That is not a college responsibility. It's not an educational responsibility. There may be staff that can support with some of that, but if your young person needs one-to-one support in order to be able to go to college, then it's social work that would be responsible for paying for that. But again, like I was saying earlier, that the huge caveat on that is that it's quite rare to get funding for one-to-one support now to go to college, and that's just the reality of the financial situation that we're in. So again, you would need to look at getting an assessment as early as possible from the local social work department, and they would come and assess the young person's needs and look at what they're going to be doing, and they might provide a budget and look at how that budget might be used. But a lot of the time the budget is not going to be enough to cover full-time one-to-one in-class support. Funding options beyond social work are fairly limited. Again, you could try the ILF Transition Fund. They have, again, we've had mixed messages that say they can't fund anything that is the responsibility of a public body to provide. But if social services are not able to fund that, then I would argue that that is something that, you know, that should be looked at. Beyond that, we have put together a guide to charitable trusts that do provide some individual educational grant funding that you could look at as well. In terms of one-to-one, perhaps educational support at college, depending upon what level you're at, if you're at further education level, so below level 7, there is something called an additional support needs for learning allowance. So this is all in the guide that we've got, and that fund, that award, if you like, is part of the bursary awards, and the college will use that to look at what else might be required for the young person, and it could be for equipment, it could be for extra travel costs, and it might be for some support, but again, it won't be for that kind of one-to-one classroom support. If they're at HE level, again, they can get the DSA, and that would be for things like having mentoring or having a scribe or having a signer, or study skills support as well.
That's great, thank you very much. One question that's just come in is someone's asking, what is the ACE department? We talked about the ACE department, that was mentioned.
Yeah, it's the Access and Continuing Education Department. So at Edinburgh College, we call ourselves the ACE department, but it is Access and Continuing Education.
Lovely, thanks very much.
Just to add briefly, I think Lindsay, you've mentioned a PLSP before, just in case people don't know the acronym, maybe you could tell them about what that is.
Yes, this is a personalised learning support plan, and basically it's when someone comes in, it's a conversation right up front about needs, about where someone is and what they need to be able to learn, and from that we create that individualised plan, and it's really for anyone that needs a bit of extra support. We have those conversations right up front about what needs to be put in place, and what we need to be able to do to be able to support any support that someone might need. We can discuss at that time,
and then it'll go into that plan.
Yes, yep.
There's one that is related specifically to the situation at the moment. Rebecca, you mentioned that college courses moving forward are likely to be kind of blended learning, and I'm guessing that we don't really at the moment really know exactly what that's going to look like. But for young people with additional support needs, how, Lindsay, maybe you have a thought on this as well, how might that work for them? And someone, it's Fiona, who has asked, I'm worried about how I can protect my son from getting the virus because his health isn't great. He doesn't really understand social distancing. What steps will college have in place to help him manage that?
That work is ongoing now. As you can imagine, it's been quite difficult working out how we can get our students back in safely, and we are aware that there will be some people who will choose not to have the young person coming into college because of those fears. So we really hope by the time we get to September that we will be running as normal as possible in terms of that the timetable that we have planned will run. And we've heard from John Swinney in the last week or so that it's likely that schools will be back as normal. If that is the case, then I imagine that colleges will be back, certainly in the ACE department, as normal anyway. We've been very vocal within the college about making sure that we are kind of first priority for coming in, because we've seen the impact of the lockdown on the young people that we work with. And there is a reality to the fact that we provide a structure to life, that when that is taken away, a lot of our young people really struggled with that. So there's a couple of things. First of all, we've already been in looking at our classrooms. We're looking at getting classrooms that are big enough to be able to get at least a 2-metre distance in between. Our staff will be doing training when we come back on how we're going to manage that. There would be, the classes are never more than 14 people, so always our classes are smaller anyway. It might be, and again, I can't confirm that yet until we're closer to the time, but it might be that we have people in you know, half the class in the morning, half the class in the afternoon. If we're still in a position where we have to social distance and the schools aren't back, that may need to happen. But our aim and our hope is that if things continue as they are, and if the schools are due to go back as normal, we should be able to get our classes in. And our classes are so small, we can absolutely observe social distancing. And part of the work that we'll be doing with our young people will be talking about social distancing, and then working, you know, our team are so creative, honestly, they're just fantastic. They're coming up with creative ways to try and teach and enforce that social distancing within. But what I would say is we're also very aware, as I mentioned before, that some parents and carers might not want their child to come along at that time. That's absolutely fine too. We totally appreciate that, and we're going to try where we can to get things online. Obviously that will depend on what that will look like as per each course, but we will try to have things online as well. But we have looked at having dedicated rooms. It's likely that if students are in, they will be in bubbles, so they will remain with their class for the day. Our hope is that they would probably stay in the same classroom for the day with the same group of people to try and reduce the amount of contact points. The college itself has been ordering PPE for its lectures where it's needed. We have hand gel, hand washing, and all the other kind of things that you would expect. So all that work is ongoing, but we really hope and are fighting for getting our students back as planned in August, because we will be able to socially distance in our classrooms, and we're desperate to see them.
And I'm guessing that any parent, if they've got doubts about that, then the best thing to do would be to contact their local college directly. You know,
yes.
the department, the equivalent department to yours, Lindsay, to be able to ask those questions
Yes.
and see what the plans are on a local basis. Yes,
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've probably got time for one more question, and it's about getting a needs assessment done. Rebecca, you referred to this. If you're going to get a needs assessment done around the support that someone's going to require in college, how would you start that ball rolling, and who would you speak to about getting an assessment of needs done for the next steps in college?
So it depends if we're talking about a DSA needs assessment or a social care assessment. So the DSA needs assessment is for all that educational support for higher education students that we were talking about. So that's for getting the special equipment or the signers or the mentors. So we're talking about a needs assessment for that. The process is all described in the fact sheet that I've linked. The first thing to do, if you know where you're going, is to get in touch with either the disability advisor or their supported learning department, and they will take you through the process. But have a look at our fact sheet. If we're talking about the social care assessment, then you go into, if you Google social work and the name of your local authority, so Edinburgh, Glasgow, wherever it might be, and it'll bring up the number for social services. And there might be a couple of different options, and it might ask you, say that it's for assessments or for adults, or so pick. There might just be one overarching social services number, and if you call them, that'll be the start off point, and they'll feed in from there where, you know, who'll be responsible, who'll be assigned, how it'll work. So if you go through just the main social services line of your local authority area, so Stirling, Glasgow, Falkirk, Highland, wherever you might be.
Okay, and this is one that's just kind of sneaking in at the end, and it's definitely for you, Rebecca. It's if you were to call LEAD, would you have a dedicated person through LEAD to deal with an organisation on behalf of a young person? Would you be able to do that? Is that something that LEAD would offer, or do you work in a different way?
So the way that I work, it's just me. If you were to phone the helpline, we're a really small charity, and I'm split my job between a couple of different roles. So we don't have the capacity to offer that one-to-one casework support. But where I can, I will provide information and advice on a case-by-case basis. I can't do advocacy because of capacity. So I can advise you what to do, I can give you some information, I can give you guidance, but I can also try and make a referral or signpost you to, if you do need what we call advocacy. So if you haven't heard that term before, go and have a look at the Scottish Independent Advocacy Alliance. So just put in SIAA. And advocates are independent organisations, they're not affiliated, they're attached to an organisation, and they're there to support the person to have their needs met and their voice heard. It can be difficult to get an advocate. There are waiting lists and there may be eligibility criteria. If you needed that more intensive one-to-one support, if it was about trying to fight for your rights or have your needs met or get support. If we're talking about LEAD services and learning with LEAD, which is a whole different thing, in one of our local areas, you would be, you'd be assigned to one person, and it'll either be our learning staff or it'll be a volunteer who's trained and been able to support you to learn, and they will be the one person that you'll see. So they'll come out and meet the learner, 1 to 2 hours a week. When we're back up and running again, either at home or in the community. At the moment, we're doing that all remotely where we can.
That's lovely, thank you. Right. I'm going to bring the questions to an end, but if you do still have comments or questions that you'd like us to hear about, or you want to share with us, or you want answers, do feel free to email certainly myself, and I can pass those on to Rebecca or to Lindsay or to Anita, and we can try and get you the information and the help that you need with that. So hopefully we've covered a number of the questions that you came along with today. I would say that, as we've mentioned a couple of times, there are the handouts that are available from this session. That gives you the telephone number for the helpline for LEAD. It also gives you quite a lot of other live links. You've got the slides that have been seen today. You can download all of those. And if you have any problems downloading them, again, do get in touch with me and let me know, and I'll be able to send you the links for that. Or they'll be on the Scottish Transitions Forum website. Shortly after this presentation's finished, actually, I'll put them up this afternoon. If you had any problems with the connection or anything like that, we have recorded this session, and again, in a couple of days' time, it will be available for you to listen, and you'll be able to see the presentations and things that took place as well. So that will be available for you, and you can share that with other people if you know other family members, anybody else who might be interested in what's been said today. Do direct them towards that, and they can listen in on that as well. So like I said right at the beginning, this is the first in the whole series of transition planning seminars that we're doing specifically for parents and carers. And the next session is going to be next Wednesday. It's Wednesday morning, not the afternoon. I think I'm right with that. And we'll be joined by Nicola Smith of Cairn Legal in Glasgow, and she's going to be talking about guardianship and power of attorney. Now, I'm sure many of you will already have come across those terms, but if you haven't, or if you're not quite sure how they apply in your situation, that's a good opportunity to connect with Nicola and ask any questions that you might have about that. So you can sign up for that session if you haven't already by going to the Scottish Transitions Forum website and following the links, Parent Carer Network, and then you'll see the links that you can go to sign up for that webinar as well. So I'm just going to finish off by saying a really big thank you to Rebecca and Anita and Lindsay for coming along this afternoon. I hope you found this really useful. It is the first time we've tried it. I hope it's a good way of getting information out to as many parents as possible, especially under COVID circumstances where we can't really come out locally and run workshops and so on in the way that we would normally do. But I hope you found it helpful, and thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope that some of you at least will be able to come along to some of the other sessions that we're running. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.